It's 200,000 years ago. You're somewhere in East Africa, and night just fell about 20 minutes ago. You're crouching behind a wall of dry brush with 6 other people, and you can hear something large moving through the grass, maybe 40 meters out. You don't have a weapon that's going to help you in the dark. You don't have walls. You don't have eyes built for this. And then the person next to you does something. They push a smoldering branch into a pile of dry acacia bark, blow on it twice, and the whole thing catches. Light explodes outward, and whatever was circling you stops. You hear it retreat. You just watched fire save your life in real time. And here's the thing. Without that single trick, that one piece of knowledge passed down through your bloodline, you and every human like you would have been dead 100,000 years before history even started. This is the story of how fire didn't just help humans. It's the story of how, without it, half the planet would have killed us before we ever got the chance to become us. Because here's what most people don't think about. You, right now, are a tropical animal. That's what Homo sapiens is. We evolved near the equator. Our bodies are optimized for a narrow band of temperature. We have almost no fur. We have almost no fat insulation compared to anything else our size. We sunburn, we overheat, we shiver. We are, from an engineering standpoint, one of the most temperature-fragile large animals that has ever existed. And yet somehow, this species colonized the entire Earth. From the Sahara to Siberia. From rainforests to frozen tundra where the ground stays ice for 12 months a year. If even one generation of your ancestors had lost the knowledge of fire, just once, in any cold climate, at any point in the last 100,000 years, your bloodline ends. You don't exist. Nobody tells you to think about fire that way, but that's the reality. So when did we figure this out? How did it actually work? And what would the world look like if we never had it? Let's start from the very beginning. The earliest evidence we have of hominins using fire goes back roughly 1.5 million years, maybe further. That's not Homo sapiens, that's Homo erectus. And here's what most people get wrong. They imagine some genius cave person rubbing 2 sticks together and inventing fire from scratch. That's not what happened. The first fire users almost certainly didn't make fire. They found it. Lightning strikes, volcanic activity, spontaneous brush fires, these things happen constantly in the African landscape. And at some point, one of your distant ancestors did something no other animal was doing. Instead of running from the fire, they stayed near it. They noticed things. The warmth, the light, the fact that animals fled from it. They started keeping it alive. Carrying embers from place to place. Feeding it fuel to stop it from dying. Think about that for a second. Before humans could start a fire, they spent potentially hundreds of thousands of years just trying not to let one go out. That's not invention. That's relationship. Your ancestors had a relationship with fire the way you have a relationship with your phone. Constantly maintaining it, panicking when it dies, and depending on it for basically everything. But here's where it gets interesting. Because fire didn't just keep you warm and scare off predators. It changed what you could eat. And that changed your entire body. Before cooking, your ancestors were eating raw meat, raw tubers, raw plants. And raw food is a nightmare for your digestive system. It takes enormous amounts of energy to break down. Your gut has to be huge. Your jaw has to be massive. You're spending 5-6 hours a day just chewing. Chimpanzees still live like this. They chew for almost half their waking hours. But once fire enters the picture, everything shifts. Cooked food is softer. It's easier to digest. It gives you more calories per gram because heat breaks down the cellular structure before your stomach has to. So over hundreds of thousands of years, something wild happens. Your gut shrinks. Your teeth get smaller. Your jaw recedes. And all that metabolic energy your body was spending on digestion, it gets redirected to your brain. The human brain uses roughly 20% of your total energy at rest. That is obscene for an organ that weighs 3 pounds. No animal on Earth runs a brain this expensive. And the prevailing theory is that cooking, fire applied to food, is what made that possible. Without fire, you don't get the human brain. Without the human brain, You don't get language, art, planning, or any of the things that made us the dominant species on this planet. Fire didn't just help you survive the night. It literally built the organ you're using to understand this sentence. And here's the wild part. Fire also completely reorganized how your ancestors lived together. Before fire, your day ended when the sun went down. Full stop. You couldn't see, you couldn't work, you couldn't socialize safely. You found somewhere to hide, and you waited for morning. But fire gave you something no other species on Earth had: extra hours. Anthropologists who study modern hunter-gatherer societies that still use fire as their primary light source have found something fascinating. Daytime conversation is almost entirely practical. It's logistics. Who's hunting where? Who's carrying what? Where are we going tomorrow? But nighttime conversation, around the fire, is completely different. It's stories, myths, jokes, social bonding, gossip, planning. The firelit hours are when culture happens, when knowledge gets passed down, when relationships deepen. One study of the Jew/Howansi people of the Kalahari found that 81% of nighttime fireside talk was storytelling. Think about that. Fire didn't just extend the day. It created the social space where human culture was born. Every story you've ever heard, every myth, every religion, all of it traces back to people sitting around a fire at night with nothing else to do but talk and listen. Your Netflix queue is a direct descendant of that exact moment. But here's where it gets really interesting, because none of that matters if fire hadn't solved the one problem that would have locked humans into a tiny strip of the planet forever: cold. Around 70,000 years ago, Homo sapiens started leaving Africa, pushing north, into the Levant, into Europe, into Central Asia, eventually into Siberia, and across a land bridge into the Americas. And here's what most people underestimate about that migration. It wasn't a choice driven by curiosity. Much of it was driven by necessity, following game, escaping drought, population pressure. But regardless of why, the destination was trying to kill you. Northern Europe during the last glacial maximum, roughly 20,000 years ago, had winter temperatures that regularly hit -30, -40 degrees Celsius. No fur, no blubber, no burrow. You, a naked tropical primate, walked into that. And you survived. Because of fire. Fire meant shelters could be heated. Fire meant frozen meat could be thawed and cooked. Fire meant wet clothing could be dried before hypothermia set in. Fire meant you could harden wooden spear tips for hunting in frozen ground. Every single adaptation that let humans survive outside the tropics either is fire or depends on fire. Without it, the entire human species stays in a narrow band around the equator. The Americas? Empty. Europe? Empty. Northern Asia? Empty. You erase about 60% of habitable land from the human story completely. And here's the thing nobody tells you. Fire also made you safer, in ways that have nothing to do with warmth or predators. It made your food safe. Before cooking, parasites were a constant, grinding threat. Tapeworms, roundworms, toxoplasma, trichinella in raw meat, pathogenic bacteria in decaying food. Cooking doesn't just make food taste better. It sterilizes it. It kills organisms that would otherwise set up shop in your intestines and slowly drain your energy, your nutrients, your lifespan. Populations without reliable fire access had dramatically higher parasite loads. Children died more often. Adults were weaker. And this wasn't occasional. This was the baseline state of existence for millions of years before controlled fire. The simple act of heating food above 60 degrees Celsius for a sustained period eliminated a category of death that had been killing primates for tens of millions of years. You don't think about salmonella when you cook your chicken tonight. But that instinct, heat it until it's safe, is the same survival logic your ancestors discovered a million years ago, just dressed up in a modern kitchen. But here's the single most counterintuitive thing about all of this. Fire didn't just change what humans could do. It changed what humans are, biologically, permanently. We are the only species on Earth that cannot survive on a raw food diet long term. Every study that's been done on humans eating exclusively raw food shows the same result: weight loss, nutrient deficiency, reproductive failure. Women on raw food diets in clinical studies had significantly disrupted menstrual cycles. We literally cannot reproduce properly without cooked food. Our bodies have evolved to depend on fire. We don't just use it, we require it. We are, at a biological level, a fire-dependent organism. There is no version of Homo sapiens that works without fire. Not anymore. It's been baked into us for so long that removing it doesn't return us to some natural state. It kills us. That's not a tool. That's a symbiosis. You are as much a product of fire as you are a product of DNA. So the next time you turn on your stove, or flip a light switch, or crank your thermostat up because your apartment is slightly too cold for your liking, just know that you're performing the most ancient human ritual there is. You're doing what your ancestors did 1.5 million years ago, when they grabbed a burning branch from a lightning strike and refused to let it die. Every furnace, every oven, every campfire, every power grid on Earth is the same act: keeping the flame alive. Humans looked at fire and didn't run. And because of that one choice, repeated across a million generations, you exist in a world where you can live anywhere, eat anything, and stay awake past dark. Without fire, half this planet would have killed us. With it, we took the whole thing.